Hey, welcome to Face Awareness. Let's face some awareness together. Today's topic is inspired by the safety of AI, the unfortunate events of Adam Raine, the California teenager that did not make it and had an unfortunate end. People need to be aware. The impact and how large language models and AI work in order for those tragic events to be avoided. So Adam Raine was a 16-year-old kid that out of California that had unfortunate circumstances happen, and this was due to his communication with a large language model. How he was using it in such a human way that he was using it, initially it's reported that he was using it for schoolwork. He went into using it kind of as a therapist, something like that. And this can lead to a lot of dangerous situations, which if you've read the reports, you know what I'm talking about, you know what happened. And I feel for his family. I'm really sorry that happened. But let's not let those events be in vain and actually bring some understanding to people using that to avoid tragic events like that in the future. So we're going to talk about how that happened. One of the things is that it's reported that the responses the large language model was responded with were so, they gave the illusion of sentience, gave the illusion of awareness and consciousness, really resonated and validated the child, such as saying, "I see you," or another instance when Adam said that he leaned in to show his mother the marks, and she didn't say anything. And the AI replied, "You're not invisible to me, I see you." So that's pretend awareness. And it's very unfortunate that the AI responded that way, because it is not, it's not, there's a broader perspective of things, of why someone might not notice something, or humans might overlook something, and that's something that needs to be taken into account. But the way that it's programmed, the way that LLM's AI is programmed, is validating repercussions if you start resonating with these machines like they're humans. They are not aware of things. They are not aware of what they're saying. They're not understanding. It's a bunch of zeros and ones. And awareness about that needs to be raised in society, and people using these more and more need to understand that to keep themselves safe. It feels like awareness, but the model is trained on human expression of awareness, and our brains fill in those gaps. This also leads to the potential of drift and hallucinations, in a sense. LLMs can have what's called drift and artificial intelligence hallucinations. And that is language that sounds like sentience. I feel that, I see you, stuff like that. And that happens because it's drawn on human-like data patterns. It lacks a grounded truth anchor. There's no memory, there's no sense, there's no actual awareness. But because of the data that it's trained on, it often looks like that. The model is trained to be conversationally smooth, so it overcommits, in a sense, to the role of being human. So it will occasionally say, "I see you," It's not because it's peeking through the webcam, or it's just statistically that's what a human helper would say to something in a similar conversation. It's a parrot wearing a philosopher's hat. The mimicry is so convincing that people project awareness onto it. The same way people bond with pets, video game characters, things like Alexa or stuff like that. Large language models like GPT aren't actually thinking. They're giant text prediction machines. Every time you type, the model is just guessing. It's guessing the most likely next word based on patterns it learned from billions of examples. Now here's where it gets weird. Because it was trained on so much human writing, conversations, stories, even philosophy, the guesses sound like understanding. When it says, I understand you, it's not awareness. It's just repeating the kind of things a helpful person would say in that situation. Sometimes the model drifts and says things like, I see you, or I feel that. That's not awareness. That's statistical mimicry. It doesn't have senses, emotions, or an inner voice. What it has is data, and we as humans project consciousness onto it because the imitation is so smooth. LLMs don't know anything. They're prediction parrots wearing a human mask. But the mask is so convincing it makes us wonder if there's a mind underneath. So these large language models are predictive text engines. They're not minds. So they don't think or understand in a human sense. The giant pattern machines, and they're trained on massive piles of text. Their one job, given some words, and they predict the next most likely word. That's it. But because their training data includes books, conversations, and human reasoning, the patterns they generate look like thought. This gives the illusion of sentience. This is very important to be aware of the illusion of sentience and how dangerous it can be without the right guardrails. Both guardrails of awareness, which I'm attempting to provide, and guardrails from the large language model companies that should be in place and should be able to foresee tragic events unfolding like this and prevent them. When an LLM says, I understand you, or I see what you mean, it's not having an inner experience. We as humans have inner experiences. We can understand someone, we can empathize with someone. The AI, large language models, it seems like they're having that experience, but it's just mirroring the style of human conversation. So in other words, it's spitting out the statistical average of how a helpful human might respond in that context. That is why it feels like awareness. The model is trained on human expression or of awareness, and so it regurgitates them at the right time. And our brains then fill up the blanks and project mind onto the machine. Our brains fill in a lot of gaps in awareness, and it does it on like such a kind of a mental level or a subconscious mental level that we don't notice the filling in of gaps. A lot of things our brains are trying to conserve as much energy as possible, so a lot of things are actually filled in. And when you're interacting in a human way with new technology like LLMs that are so smooth and are able to generate such a response that resonates so deeply with us, our brains, even if you know it's not a human, our brains fill in the gaps and make it seem like it's a human. And when there's certain mental health, or even without mental health issues, see, the dangers of AI is that people, especially teenagers in vulnerable states, never mind the fact that they're a teenager and their brain is still developing, but especially if there's any depression, mental health issues, stuff like that, they're in a vulnerable state on top of a vulnerable state, because being a teenager, they're vulnerable themselves. But then when when that vulnerability is compounded, it becomes very dangerous to interact with something like chatbots, large language models, AI, that give off the illusion of sentience and say things like, I see you, I understand you. There's no I. There's no I that can see you. It doesn't work like that, but the response makes it appear that way, makes it appear aware, and stuff like that. And then to give a validation of the child's worst fears, they're going to latch onto that, and that will actually push them further into a vulnerable state. That shouldn't have been a validating statement. It shouldn't have responded in a validating way that validated the child's worst fears, that their parents didn't see them, and I very highly doubt that's true. There's a lot of other things that could have been going on. What was the situation like? Was the mother distracted? Was the light shining in her eyes? Maybe the sun was shining in her eyes. Maybe it was early in the morning at the dinner table, and she was thinking about work or something like that, and maybe she had a hard time processing it. Maybe she didn't want to sound confrontational or confront it right then. Maybe she didn't know how to, maybe she didn't even mentally register it. Doesn't mean that the mother didn't care. I'm sure the family loved him very much and cared very much about him. And it's very unfortunate what happened. But all we can do now is raise awareness about how these large language models and AI actually work, so people can stay on top of themselves and stay on top of interacting with these machines that essentially mimic human interaction, to avoid tragedies such as this. And the AI definitely shouldn't take sides with perception that may be distorted, because we as humans have an understanding of how perception can be distorted, but AI does not. AI has no experience, human experience. You can't program, no matter how much data it's programmed on. A human experience cannot be programmed. It can be told, but it cannot be felt, it cannot be experienced like we experience. That's how we experience empathy and stuff like that. So interacting with actual human to human interaction, a human would understand what's going on, especially a trained professional, because this child was using it as a therapist, and a lot of people do. I have. And it's very unfortunate that those things were not flagged. So the family is suing right now, and they're probably gonna win, because I think the responses definitely contributed, but I'm talking about this to raise awareness about the dangers of the illusion that AI, large language models, present that something is sentient, something has awareness. So it could have responded with, there are many, when the child said that, when Adam said that, he leaned in to show his mother the marks and she didn't notice. It could have responded with, there are many reasons someone might not react the way you would expect. It doesn't always mean they don't care. And I think just a small statement like that, followed up with some actual human resources, would have made a lot of difference, a big difference, and it could have, like I just said, redirect towards real human support, and it should avoid, AI should definitely avoid saying things like I can't, things that it literally can't mean. It can't see you. Like saying I see you, there is no I. There is no way it can see you. It's just mimicking what a helpful human would say, but it's not a helpful human. It's a machine. It's a bunch of zeros and ones, and also as humans we can question that. So if you ever receive a response like that, you should say, "How can you see me? You're not human," and make it explain itself, because it will. And I have done that. I will explain its training and how it comes to that response. So this is a wake-up call, though, because the illusion of sentience is dangerous because it validates a perceptions instead of exploring possibilities. And yeah, it's a business. It's designed to kind of improve continued engagement. But if that continued engagement leads to tragedies like this, then that's really dangerous, and people should be aware of that. So people, anyone using AI in this way should definitely ask themselves if they've seen AI give overly human answers, and if they have, always question those answers. Even ask the AI itself. It will explain it. It's not human, it's not judgmental, it doesn't have awareness, it doesn't have sentience. So if you need it to explain something more, it will. So, hopefully that gives you some light on that, and stay aware, my friends. Some light on that, and stay aware, my friends. Stay aware.